Greetings. Thanks for joining me. It's Fred in Alaska. What I wanted to share with you today it comes from Chad and Darcy, and it's an encounter they had approximately a decade ago at Roaring Bear Lake. It's a hell of a name. So this particular lake is up north, south of Chandelar, closer to the Canadian border in the interior. And so Chad and Darcy used to basically be guides. They used to fishing guides, and their thing was trout fishing, best trout fishing in the world. And they would take clients to out of the way places as part of their niche, to fish for trout, And Chad loved it. Fishing for trout, he'd get his fly rod. He's on it, right? So they land at the lake, and they're towards the southwest side of the lake. And as he parked, everyone got out. There's 3 clients there with him and Darcy, and Darcy stayed with the clients, and Chad wanted to go from where they parked the plane around this little pinnacle, this little spit. It's almost like an open salmon mouth, but he goes around there, and he wanted to fish the smaller creek that fed into a pond, and he suspected there was some lunkers in there. He wanted to get a big trout, but he didn't want too many lines in the way. So in a sense, he was like, Darcy, keep our clients over here to fish, and I'm gonna go to my little spot where I wanna try to catch fish before you guys migrate over or whatever. And this is approximately 7 a.m. in the morning, right? And it's full blown line of the midnight sun. The sun was already up. Well, okay, so he gets around there, and he's at the mouth of this creek, and when they flew over, it didn't look as a pain in the butt to maneuver, right? And so he gets over there, and he realizes, crap, this is gonna, I don't have the proper stuff to, get to where I could fish the way I want to with this fly rod. So he's kind of just teasing the mouth, as he put it, the mouth of this little feeder creek, going off of the lake, and he catches a couple fish, which is cool. Nothing that he was really, all that stoked about keeping. He didn't keep him. He let him go. He said he was there about 45 minutes, and paying attention to his surroundings. He had a 454 on his hip. He wasn't overly concerned, like, for bears or whatever, because he was a guide. He dealt with plenty of bears, and whatnot. And so as he's doing his thing, he hears this scream, right? And this scream really jarred him because it was loud, and it was just below him, down. He assumed it was down by where this little pond is, off to the left-hand side of that, because that's where, the bulk of the sound was coming from. Chad said he instantly was like, what the hell? And started gathering up. He had, one of those vests with all the lures and stuff right here, and all that. But he starts breaking down his fly rod and putting it in its case and looking in that direction. He's focused. He's like, whatever is making that noise is right over there, and I don't want no part of it, right? And in his mind, he's thinking, I hope Darcy heard that and is getting people loaded in the plane, so I don't have to get over there and, and deal with that. But so there's stuff going on. He's thinking about what's happening over at the plane. He's thinking about this scream. He said the scream jarred his system. He said it freaked him out. And he said he's never felt that kind of just, fear, like just, grip him in that way. So Chad said once he got his fly rod in its case and slung over his shoulder, he immediately drew his pistol, and he was checking to make sure all 5 shots were in there, and he was checking his vest pouch, to make sure his extra rounds were there, and everything checked out. So he's literally taking a couple steps backwards, because he said he wanted to turn and run, but something in him said, keep an eye, don't take your eyes off that area, because this scream really gripped him. He said it was a vicious, mournful kind of scream, which, I mean, so I asked him to flesh that out a little bit for me, you know? And he said it sounded like a groan, but then ended with just this vicious, high-pitched, like, a very aggressive type scream. And so I was like, all right, fair enough. So he's literally taking a couple steps, looking, checking all around him, taking a couple steps back, checking all around. I mean, literally that snail pace of movement. And he shook. He said as he was standing there, he felt his hands kind of quivering, holding the pistol. And he'd never been in a situation, even with the bear rushing him, he never felt that. And as he gets back a little ways, all of a sudden he sees this dark thing come out of the brush, right? Because there's no big trees up there or anything. It's all brush. And the brush was rather large. He said the brush he was looking into, he had guesstimated at 9 to 10 foot tall. This thing was taller than that. Very dark, almost pitch black, very dark. Comes out, and the way the sun was, it was coming down and, you know, basically over his left shoulder, but he couldn't, it was so dark he couldn't make out any features because it just looked black, like, you know, someone in a black suit over there, right? And he said initially he thought it was the front end of a moose, but then, you know, he's looking and then he saw it, 2 legs, right? And instantly was like, oh, holy crap, you know? And he's thinking to himself the whole time as he picked up his pace as far as his backtracking goes, right? Because he has to go around this pinnacle. He didn't want to get caught in the brush with this thing that close. So he stayed in the open to where he could keep a visual, you know, sight instead of being caught up in the brush. So he backs up. He said as he was backing up from where he saw this thing, initially this thing stopped and was just looking in his direction. He said it had to have been at least 10 foot tall. He said it didn't look overly robust or thick. It kind of looked a little lanky, but it was all black, and he was freaking out a little bit, you know, because this thing just was there, you know. So, you know, and he did mention that when they were flying over, he didn't notice anything. And normally you see a moose from the plane easy, a bear from the plane easy. And he said when they circled around checking wind direction, you know, for landing, there was no sign of anything. No sign of anything, right? But the brush is thick. So, you know, but, you know, he was just kind of like, whoa. So he's backing up, and he gets to a point to where as he looks back, he realizes the plane's around the corner, you know, maybe 120 yards away. So, you know, 120 yards to the corner, hook around, the plane's right over there, right? So, and again, the whole time he's thinking, Darcy, please have heard that, and please have people packed up. I don't know what this thing is doing, because, again, it was just standing there, and he's backing away. He said he got to a certain point when he looked over his shoulder again and looked back, the thing was gone. And that really freaked him out. So seeing it was gone, he turned around and hauled as fast as he could to get up to that little pinnacle, that point, so he can get around there and get back over to the plane, right? So he said as he was doing so, he was looking over his shoulder every once in a while, and he had to stop one time to catch his breath because he was totally freaking out, panicking, out of breath. And he said when he stopped, he was listening, and in between hearing himself breathe real heavy, he heard the brush moving, coming up his direction, just off the bank, you know, of the lake. And so he's like, crap, it's chasing me. He said it was making a lot of noise, but it didn't sound like it was progressing very fast. But, you know, when someone's freaking out, you know. And so he starts walking slowly, again, pistol out. He's got his back, walking backwards again, listening to this sound, trying to catch his breath. He said as he was going along, he noticed this thing popping its head up above the brush and then ducking back down. Heard movement. It was a little closer, popped its head up, right? So he's watching this happen right off to his right-hand side, and he's thinking, well, shit, you know, I'm going to have to shoot this thing, you know. It's coming for me. I'm going to have to shoot it. Should I stand my ground or keep retreating? And he decides he's going to continue his retreat, right? He wanted to get into visual range of the plane. Hopefully Darcy could see him and back him up with the bear gun they had over there, which was a shotgun, right? And again, all this is happening. He's got 3 clients he's got to worry about. He's got his wife over there, and this thing is coming at him. It wasn't a full-out rush, but it was still coming at him, you know. So he keeps going backwards. He's trying to go as quick as he can, and at one point he said he stopped and he was trying to catch his breath because he was going to pop a shot at it when it popped its head up. And he said he said it was real weird because as soon as he stopped and he cocked the hammer, it stopped popping up. It was just moving. He could hear it. It was like strategically moving according to how he felt in the moment. You know, he didn't know for sure, but he would hear movement, quietness for a second, movement, quietness, and then movement, quietness. And, you know, he felt like he was being stalked. And so without it popping up, he didn't know exactly where it was. So he turned around and ran again, got around the pinnacle, was catching his breath again, was freaking out heavy, right? Now at this point, Darcy did hear the scream. Darcy heard it very well and had everyone by the plane, all their stuff already in there, but she had them staged by the plane, and she had turned it around facing away from shore, and everyone was waiting there and kind of holding the lines, you know, from the wings and stuff. And Darcy said, "You guys wait here," and she brought the shotgun, and she was coming to meet him. And he was so thankful when he saw that, but then he was yelling at her, wait there, watch the brush, because again, he came around that pinnacle. He didn't know if this thing was cutting through to cut him off or could potentially ambush her. He didn't know, you know what I mean? Because last he saw it, it was off to his right, which would be straight in line with the plane if it was to go just straight north, right? So he's walking towards her saying, keep an eye on the bush, there's something out there. Well, as they meet each other, Darcy said as she was standing there, she kept hearing noise in the brush. She kept hearing it, but nothing was showing itself, right? So all she would hear is the brush movement, and then the wind had picked up a little bit, so the leaves rustling, and you know, it was really hard to make out and pinpoint where that noise was, right? So Chad meets up with her, explains, hey, the dark figure, I don't know what the hell it is, we gotta go. And she's like, okay. So he has her in front of him. Darcy said as she's walking, they're, you know, maybe 70 yards at this point from the plane and the clients, right? One of the clients is yelling, hey, there's a bear moving over in the brush. Darcy says, I know, stay there. And so they walk over, a quick jog, really. I mean, let's be honest, freaking out, but not trying to show it with the clients, right? Chad was like, I was trying to keep a brave face for the clients. So they get up to the clients, and the clients hadn't seen nothing. They heard the scream with Darcy, and of course they understood, hey, we don't know what that is. We'll be ready to go. Well, one of the guys was like, that is one odd-looking bear. I seen it. It popped its head up and then dropped back down into the brush. It was right over there, right? And Chad's like, well, let's get on the plane. Let's load up. We're not going to deal with an aggressive bear. Everyone's loading up in the plane, and it pops up again, right? And one of the women outside of Darcy that was with this group of 3, she's seen it pop up. And, you know, as she's getting into the plane, she says, it doesn't look like a bear. That doesn't look like a bear, right? And no one's really arguing about it. Everyone's just kind of trying to look out the windows of the plane as they're loading up, trying to, you know, look and spot this bear, right? So Chad, he has a guy get on or whatever, you know, all the lines are free and whatnot. And he has on chest waders, so he pushes the plane out a little bit. And as he's trying to do so, the wind is blowing. So he's like, screw it. You know, the wind's blowing. It's good in our direction. I'll just hop in, fire up, and we'll, you know, take off from there. So he gets in. He does this quick pre-flight, fires up the motor, and it's idling for a minute. He's watching the, you know, the gauges and all that stuff. And as he's doing so, he's rubbernecking. You know, he's looking out. He's got Darcy looking out. He's got the passengers keeping an eye out. And he said once he had the plane fired up, he felt a lot better because he was like literally could, you know, hammer down and take off, right? And he said, okay, it's warmed up enough or whatever. We're going to be taking off. We'll go to another place. So he takes off, and he takes off heading east, right? Because that's the direction the wind's coming. So he takes off, And he said once he got up to altitude, he came back around and was kind of buzzing kind of low, asking the people to take a look, look out the window, tell me what you see. And as he's doing so, Darcy says, there it is, it's by that little pond, it's by the little pond. And so he circles around because, of course, he was at the controls, and, all the obstructions, he couldn't really see what Darcy was. So he came back around and he was looking out his side as he was making a turn. And he said that one of the people saw it with him take off running and hit in the brush, and just brush movement, right? And he asked the guy later, what did you see? And the guy told him, what I saw looked like a very large man in a fur jacket running in the bush. What the hell is that? Chad was like, your guess is as good as mine. I have no idea. And they left it at that. He circled a couple more times trying to get an eye at it, but it wasn't, it was gone. I want to thank Chad and Darcy for sharing that. They ended up stopped doing the guiding thing for medical reasons. Chad had some issues with diabetes that affected his vision, a year or two after this. And so he, he was medically retired from flying, basically. And I want to thank them for sharing. It was difficult for Chad because he said it was like a curse almost, because no sooner than that happened, all of a sudden he finds out he has diabetes, and then shortly after that it affects his vision and stuff. And I mean, it's coincidental, but I could see where it would feel like, oh geez, this is the catalyst for all bad things. But realistically, that probably wasn't the case. I mean, I hope not. I want to thank them for sharing. I was trying to remember if there was something I was going to share an announcement with or something. I don't remember offhand. I know I'm doing a podcast with the Anchorage Museum at some point here. I think it's on the 3rd. I don't know. I'll try to figure it out. Also, something coming up this Friday. I'll get the information and post it in the description. But I want to thank you guys for joining me. I want to thank Chad and Darcy, and I believe that was it. And thank you guys for joining me, and we'll catch you on the next one.